But anyway, yeah, just the best way to enjoy these videos is in a...
What is this guy doing?
Try not to.
He's like making noise on purpose or something.
Anyway, see you later.
Where's the next part? Here we go. Ha! Hey there, everyone. This is Raocow, and by Raocow, I mean Golem. Today we're going to be covering the Ice Cap Zone, and I'm gonna shut up now because the Mystic Ruins, when it's sped up twice, or 4 times speed, it sounds a lot like the first stage from Biohazard Battle. Give it a listen. Yeah, I mean, that's totally the same percussion, right? Anyway, we'll be doing Tails first. So, Tails' version of Ice Cap is a snowboarding stage. I actually remember, on the GameCube demo disc, there was a demo for Sonic Adventure, and if you chose to play as Tails, you would get this stage. But we're not here to LP the demo disc, even though it had Beautiful Joe and Rainbow Six. I think it had Rainbow Six. Anyway, we're here to LP Sonic Adventure. And I feel like it's appropriate that there's a snowboarding stage right after Casinopolis, because Casinopolis had a pretty big minigame itself, the 2 pinball tables that I more or less skipped. And this time, Ice Cap Zone has a pretty sizable minigame in the form of the snowboarding segment. And so Sonic Team, I feel like towards the middle of Sonic's campaign, tries to keep things lively with different variations on gameplay. But I also want to say that the snowboarding in Ice Cap Zone is a little bit of a misstep, in that most minigames, like the tornado stages and the pinball tables, don't really take place in the inside of a normal stage. So, see, the pinball tables are optional, I mean, as you could tell from last video, and the tornado stages, where you fly around and shoot down stuff, those are explicitly labeled as subgames and not really part of a stage. Whereas, like, halfway through Ice Cap Zone, you go outside and now you're snowboarding. Now, it adds an element of excitement, and it actually, it helps out the pacing, as you'll see later on. But I also feel like it sort of dilutes the design. If just half the stage is not platforming, and, you know, there's no way around it. Which isn't to say that the snowboarding is bad in any sense. I mean, it's a little plain, I guess you could call it uninteresting. But for the most part, it's solid, and it's fun to see stuff go by fast. And it's not like you're in any danger, so, I mean, it's not going to be frustrating or anything. And, actually, I like to play a game where I try to break as many icicles as possible. But, well, looks like that's it for Tails. I guess we're on to Sonic next. Okay. Sonic's stage, on the other hand, I think is pretty interesting. Before you even get to the snowboarding bit, it's split up into 2 parts. This first part, actually, you can skip entirely. Once you exit this cave, go down from the start, and there's a line of rings you can use to lightspeed dash, and from there you get a shortcut right to the second part of the stage. But even though I'm showing it off, I'm not going to take it because we don't want to skip the main part of the first part of the stage. Also wanted to point out that, yeah, there's some rings up here, and suspicious bump. Wonder we could do with that. Anyway, if you go straight from the beginning of the stage, you end up going inside this cave. So basically, the story of this cave is that you do some platforming around the rim of the cave, and the center is never really used, except for there's floor there, obviously. And there's the 2 main features are the springs and the icicles that you climb around on. The icicles really aren't fun to use at all. It's really slow climbing, and you gotta aim up stuff properly. It's a gimmick, I suppose, but not the funnest gimmick I've ever seen. It's also important to note here that there are items hidden off to the side, like if you go off the beaten path you're rewarded, but there's no alternate paths, so that's important to keep in mind. But there we go, we've already cleared the first half. Well, way to go, Sonic. And now the second half. What's interesting to note is that the second half is actually just a bigger version of the first half. So it's more like the first half is an introduction to a structural concept, and then the second half is basically the full implementation and of the idea. I was kind of surprised to learn that there's ice physics in this game. I don't think I've ever noticed that. I mean, it has been a while since I've gotten, 100% clear on this game. Sans mission mode. But yeah, I don't remember ice physics. Anyway. So, just like the last cave, we've got springs, we've got icicles to hang from, and what's new is that they introduced an element of danger with those spikes popping out of the ground and the ceiling. Now, you really have to try to hit those spikes, but, well, they get an E for effort, I suppose. Anyway, so the structure of the platforming itself isn't too interesting here. You get some springs, you get some speedways, and it's all broken up by climbing on icicles every now and then. And look, just like the smaller cave, we've got small bits off to the side where you can find extra rings and stuff. Anyway, but the main platforming really isn't all that interesting. And I think in that sense, this zone is faithful to the Genesis Sonics, in that the Genesis Sonics, like, I have fun in the bouncy stages. That kind of platforming can be neat. But overall, Sonic platforming really isn't that interesting. You get to jump over bottomless pits and, I don't know, hit the occasional enemy. But there's nothing engaging about the platforming itself. It's more so the paths that the platforming is placed on. And making routes for yourself, or trying to stick to a certain route, and, seeing how many rings you can get, or whatever. And so this is a stage that really lets you play around with its structure. Unfortunately, I'm not able to show it now. Maybe someone else could come in and help out later, but I don't know about that. I also like, I don't know. I really can't overstate how much I like that the small cave is turned into the bigger cave later on. It's like, I don't know, I want to say it's like a tutorial for the stage's structure, like introducing you to it in a small, safe context, and then really going out and exploring it full force. Anyway, and now that we've played the Sonic portion of the stage, the Tails portion makes a whole lot more sense, doesn't it? Instead of just this weird non-stage where there's nothing going on and like no danger or anything, which is what you get when you play as Tails. It's like, why? Yeah. But when you play as Sonic, it's sort of, well, think of it in this sense. You've just come out of a cave full of really slow platforming, having to slide around those icicles and make careful jumps and stuff, and then you come outside and you're greeted by this, and just like you can feel the wind in your face, and so, I mean, I'm still not happy with it because it's not platforming, but it at least strikes a nice note on the pacing in that, it just sort of breaks free out of that slow bit. And, I mean, I have to admit, it's not entirely disloyal to Sonic's idea of game design in that, or stage design, in that there are alternate paths, there's shortcuts, and you go fast if you want to. And there's even some bits where if you take the upper path, you get a better ramp to jump off of. I guess I should say Knuckles does not visit this stage, although even though that bigger cave was pretty slow, it did not have a lot of alternate paths or any nooks or crannies to explore as Sonic, so obviously you wouldn't be able to do much there as Knuckles. So, I actually think that's kind of an interesting note in that, it's a phone. It's, alright, anyway, as I was about to say, it's interesting to note that just because something is slow doesn't mean it's appropriate for Knuckles. And in fact, the when Knuckles gets a part of Sonic's stage, it's often like a really fast part. Like, well, not really fast, but often Sonic is able to go through it fast. And that's why it's important to have Knuckles there, so that you have a way of playing it slowly, and appreciating all the nooks and crannies. And I think it's neat that Sonic Team doesn't, like, they can have two wildly different speeds take place in the same space of stage. I don't know if that made any sense, and I'm definitely not re-recording that because this is like my 10th take. Anyway. Hold on, there's someone... What? Metal Sonic? Why should I let you play? Alright, fine. Go ahead. I think what Metal Sonic wants to show us is that the spin dash gives you the power to play around with the structure of Ice Cap. The spin dash makes Sonic go so fast in such a short amount of time, like there's no build-up, basically. It's 0 to 60. That it allows you to play around with jumps. Like, you can make really big jumps that you can't make normally. And also, it's also worth noting that if you jump off of an upward slope right after spin dashing, you'll go way high. And that's another thing borrowed from the Genesis Sonics. Anyway. And that's a thing that's useful in a lot of stages, not just Ice Cap. There's a pretty significant shortcut near the beginning of Emerald Coast that I like to use. Anyway. So I said earlier that the interesting part of Ice Cap was how you could play around with the structure. And I compared that to the Genesis Sonics because, like, as I said, the interesting part of the Genesis Sonics was exploring the paths and, making your own path through a level. And the spin dash is how you do that in this stage. If you play it normally and straightforward, you're stuck on one path. But if you use the spin dash, you can go across the center of the stage and just find entirely new ways of approaching the stage, and making paths for yourself. I guess, and the feature of the okay, let me get my thoughts together here. Sorry. Anyway. So, the feature of the structure that makes it possible for you to make your own path, is the fact that there's nothing in the middle of the stage. Sonic Team wants you to go around to the rim of the cave, so the middle is just completely blank. And, I mean, they could have filled it up, like, you could have been going through narrow hallways and the center of the cave could have been entirely filled with rock or something like that. But instead, Sonic Team left it open, and that just gives you so many opportunities to play around with what's going on. And it's kind of, I don't know, people who are concerned with what if you're concerned with what Sonic Team intended, I think you'll have a bit of a problem, since it's a little hard to tell. I get the feeling that maybe Sonic Team realized you could break these stages, but they just left it in because it was so much fun. But it could just as easily be that Sonic Team had no idea that you could go across the middle of the room in the big cave, and just no one caught it. Sonic Adventure definitely does have sort of a... I don't want to say rushed, but it's not entirely polished 100%. Yeah. Anyway, I was kind of goofing off in the earlier snowboarding segments, but this is me earnestly trying now. And I've never been able to hit that last ramp quite quick enough to do one of those big jumps. There's a cliff you have to clear. I don't quite know how to clear it. But, you know what? We beat the A mission with 1 minute and 3 seconds to spare. So how about that? Alright, next time I think we got 2 bosses And we might actually have a sub-game, so the next episode is gonna suck quite a bit. Alright, I look forward to it. See you then.